Hello everyone, today we're talking about the past perfect continuous, which is a very nice and easy tense. If you remember the present perfect continuous, if you had no difficulty with that one, this one is going to be just as easy and nice. So it only has two meanings, but before we pass over to them, we are going to remember the present perfect continuous. I have been working for Toshiba for 17 years. Why are you so sad? I have been watching Hachiko. So you remember these typical examples, I hope. The first meaning is an action that began before the moment of speaking and continues into it or up to it, and in this case this is used with dynamic verbs in affirmative sentences and with active voice. So all the three conditions should be together. For example, you started studying English 10 years ago. All 10 years you kept this process up, and now you say, I have been studying English for 10 years. I started 10 years ago and I still do it. Then the second meaning is a little bit different. It's when the action was in progress recently and it in some way explains the present situation. So you look at the current situation, you see something is wrong or strange or unusual, and you ask a question. For example, you see a child and you ask a child, Willie, why are your eyes so red? And Willie says, I have been crying. Not right now. Willie stopped several hours ago, but his eyes are still red. That means that the action explains the present situation. Or another good example was about why your shoes so dirty? I was walking through the forest. Or why do you arrive at home at such an hour? I have been jogging in the park, and so on. So something that happened as a process in the recent past, and it explains the present situation. So now that we remember this about the present perfect continuous, we move on to the past perfect continuous, and let me turn on my presentation. So here first you can see the example situation, not several examples, it's one situation where you can see how the tense is built, right? So this is an analytical form. It has two auxiliary verbs, had and been, and after that you use the ing form of the notional verb. So if we need to build a negative sentence, we are going to put the negative particle not in between the two auxiliary verbs. So she had not been hiking in the wild. And of course, if we ask a question, if we make an interrogative sentence, the auxiliary verb had is going to be the one which will move to the first or second position depending on the type of question. So had she been hiking in the forest? Or where had she been hiking before she was stopped by the police, right? And then the police officer in our example shrugged and said that the government had been evacuating tourists, but if the police officer decides to build a negative sentence, we say the government had not been evacuating tourists. And if it's a question, had the government been evacuating tourists? I think it didn't. It hadn't. So then this is about the formation. Now we pass over to the meanings. So the first meaning of the the past perfect continuous tense is the action that began before a given past moment and continued into it or up to it. And as previously was true for the present perfect continuous with the past perfect continuous, you also have the combination of the same three factors. It should be a dynamic verb, an affirmative sentence, and active voice. So if these three conditions are together, then we can use the past perfect continuous. And here is our example. Margot put down the books she had been holding. Марго поставила на пол коробку, которую до этого держала. So there is a point in the past, a given past moment, when she put down the books, and before that, for some period of time, she had been holding these books, right? So the action continued right into the moment when she put down the books. Or other examples here, we did not notice that the children had been playing outside all day. There was this moment when we realized that, and all that day before that, the children had been playing. So the action began before that past moment and continued into it. Or another longer example, Tom made fun of the fact that he had been binge-watching all the episodes since the morning and forgot to check his messages. So in this case, there was this moment in the past, the single action when Tom made fun, and then before that moment he had been binge-watching all the episodes. That's why he didn't check his messages, and lots of people were calling him, and he was watching Game of Thrones for 2 days, for example. Right, so this is the first meaning. It's very simple. It started in the past and continued for a long time before some less past moment. The second meaning is the action that was in progress in the deeper past, and now it explains the past situation. So here in our example we have the problem in the past. The children looked very pale, so we have this moment when we look at the children and the children looked pale. And before that, we have a reason why they looked pale. They had not been getting enough sun. Они недостаточно бывали на солнце. It did not necessarily continue right into the moment when we looked at them and saw that they were pale, right? But instead, we kind of see from the color of their skin that they had not been in the sun enough, right? Or another example here, Martin was deep in thought. He had been reading up on German philosophy. If you have ever read German philosophy, you know what I'm talking about here. So, for example, there was a period of time in the deeper past when Martin was reading up on German philosophy. It lasted 2 days. And then after that, there was less deep past when Martin has this feeling that he was not focused. People asked him questions he didn't answer. He was deep in thought, right? Because before that, during some period of time, he had been reading up on German philosophy. Or alternatively, another example, Anne was really sad. She had been watching Hachiko. So there was a moment in the past when Anne was sad, and a little bit before that there was a period of time when she had been watching Hachiko, and that explains that past situation of Anne being sad, right? So actually there is absolutely nothing difficult about it. You did something, and before that there had been something had been happening, and it explained your next action or your appearance or your state or whatever. So then the only interesting thing about the past perfect continuous is that very often we have lots of variants, what kind of conjunction we can use in the sentences, because we need to underline that the action had been taking place in progress, that the action was a long one, and there are a variety of conjunctions that help us do that. So some of the examples are going to be here, and I'm going to read them and translate them. Maria revealed the secret that she had been writing a novel since she was 16. So there is this single action in the past when she revealed the secret that even earlier, since she was 16 and now she's 40, for example, even earlier for this long time, she had been writing a novel, right? Or the students explained that they had been staying at home all the time the quarantine had lasted. And this is a piece from a story where the quarantine has already finished, but at that point the characters did not know that, and it's over. It's still not over, it's still there. So at that point the students explained a single action in the past that even earlier there was this long action when the quarantine had lasted, and during that time, all the time, they had been staying at home. So last is a stative verb, but stay is not a stative verb, so we have this difference between the past perfect and the past perfect continuous here, right, because of stative dynamic difference. The night smelled of ozone. It had been raining while we had been inside. Exactly the same case. We have this moment in the past when we looked at the situation, the night smelled of ozone. And why did it smell of ozone? It had been raining during that period of time when we had been inside. So rain is not a stative verb, we use the past perfect continuous. To be in had been inside means being at some place, so it's a notional verb to be. It is stative, we can't use the past perfect continuous, we use the past perfect. And the last example. We had been brainstorming for an hour when Emily suggested that brilliant idea. So there was this moment in the past when Emily suggested that idea, and before that there was this period of time when we had been brainstorming for an hour. And this is it, nothing else. So let me get back to you. This video seems to be very short because the past perfect continuous is very short. It only has 2 meanings, which fully coincide with the meanings of the present perfect continuous, but they are used in a past time context, in a book, in a story, in a chronicle, in a film. So it should be something where there is past and deeper past that explains the normal regular past. So that's it, and thank you for watching this video. We are going to meet after your internship.